Welcome to another F-Car Guy video. Today I'm going to lower the ride height of the FF using the stock coilover suspension, which it has. So wheel off, and then having a little look behind here, you can see the standard coilover suspension with the standard e-back springs. And just down there I've removed the little black dust cap. Just there you can see the two locking nuts. One is the lock nut, one is the nut that the suspension sits on, or the spring sits on. And just below there you can see you've got about 20 millimeters of ride height adjustment. As the FF sits very, very high on the stock suspension, I'd say there's probably about 50 millimeters gap front and back. It's obviously not going to sit super low, but I don't really want it to sit super low. I've seen pictures of FFs that sit right on the top of the tyre, and it doesn't quite look right for this type of body design. So I have seen plenty of pictures of people who have done exactly what I'm going to do today and adjust that down to the bottom, and for me that looks okay. If I need more, I will change the springs, but for now this seems like a good thing just to test. So if you're wanting to do this yourself, there's a few things that you'll need to know. Firstly, safety stuff. Obviously make sure you're wearing gloves. If you want to keep your knuckles, make sure you wear glasses if you want to keep your eyesight. Make sure you're using a very heavy duty trolley jack, because these are a heavy car. Make sure you're using the correct trolley jack points, which they're very visible when you look under the car. And then make sure you also have something else underneath the car, just in case it drops, and make sure it is appropriately placed so that it lands on something that can actually support the weight of the car, not the disc, unless you want to fork out £15,000 for a new one. On the subject of the disc and safety, make sure that when you're using tools near here that you stay as far away as possible from this carbon disc. Again, if you break one, they're not only expensive, but you can't just change one, you'll have to change the pair, and again you could be looking at about £10,000 to do that. It goes without saying, obviously be careful of the paintwork as well, but that's probably the most expensive thing that you want to be very careful of. Right, so as it happens, I've already done the rears. In true me fashion, I walked out into the garage with a coffee in my hand, looked at the car and thought I wouldn't mind it being lower. Next thing I knew, I'd lowered the back before I'd even had a chance to get the camera out. So I've actually already done the other side of the front as well. This is the last wheel I need to do, but that's okay, because actually, as it happens, the fronts are more difficult to do than the back. So what I'll show you here will be easier for you to do at the back. So what you need to get the job done, there are Ferrari C-spanners that you can use for these to undo them. However, they only fit if you take the entire suspension component out of the car. The spanner won't fit because there's too many things in its way. So what you can actually do is use a flat blade screwdriver and a hammer just to knock it free, and then you can actually spin it with your hand. How they stop spinning is when you lock the two nuts together, so you can spin it freely with your hand to get it down to the bottom, and then again you can unlock this one and spin that freely until you get to the bottom, and then twist the two together in opposite directions to lock them into place. And again, I mentioned a hammer there, so that's where you want to be careful with your hammer near this. So where the fronts differ from the back is here in the front. You'll need to remove these pieces of trim because you need greater access up in here, or at least visibility. And the other thing you need to do in the front is to remove this piece of trim. The reason for that is you cannot move these, you will not be able to loosen them until you take the pressure away from the pressure that's caused by the spring. And the only way you can do that is to use a pair of spring compressors. So with the spring compressors, in the rear there's plenty of room. You can easily fit one on each side and slowly compress that spring. Here you need to be able to get up into there, so these things need to be pushed out the way. So that's quite easy to do. It's only about 10 minutes to take that off. The reason you need to take the top one off is because as you compress the screw compressors, and I will show you this when I do it, the tops of these threads will actually begin to poke through about here, and if you don't have this off, it will put upward pressure on this plastic and most likely break it. But also there's a few things going on here. There is a plastic, I'm not sure what that is. I think that's some cowling protecting some wiring. And on this side, which is the passenger side, if you've got a right-hand drive car, there is a hot water pipe, what am I trying to think of, for the cooling system for the radiator. So you definitely don't want to pierce through that. So it's more a thing of slowly compressing the spring compressors, having this out of the way, and checking periodically to make sure that that extra thread that comes off the top is not coming anywhere close to these things like the pipe and the wiring. So having that off is just good for visibility. It's also a good idea to have something over here if you're going to be leaning over it a lot. I haven't got anything because, you know, I'm not actually working over here. I'm just peering over it to check. But if you're concerned about that, then by all means pop something over the top. So I have the wheel off, as you can see, and the only thing I've done so far is pull this piece of plastic off, just so that you can see and I can explain to you how that works. So what I'm going to do off camera now, because it takes quite a while, is I'm going to remove, sorry, this bit doesn't take a while. I'm going to remove these bits of trim and the top ones, and I'm going to attach the two spring compressors, and then I'll update you then. And then further from that, I'll then compress the spring compressors so you can see what it looks like when they're compressed and what you should be looking for to know that you have compressed them. Okay, you'll join me again in a moment. Okay, so a couple of things. Firstly, you don't actually have to remove the entire trim. You just need to get it off enough that you can just, as you can see, push that back and you can see daylight through there, so that you can get right up into there. You can see I've got the spring compressors on, and I have actually compressed them. So I'm going to show you what happens at the top. Again, you don't actually have to take this completely off, but you just need it loose so that you can get a visual to make sure that that thread isn't going to go up through that. I was incorrect with that. That is just like the other side of the car. That is a radiator hose, so you definitely don't want to pierce that. And there's the other one. So well clear of anything. So as I'm tightening up those compressors, they're coming up more and more. So you can see if I didn't have this on, it would have put pressure and probably cracked that. But you know, the biggest reason is so that you've got lots of space to see what's going on as that comes through. So the spring is compressed. You'll see one of two different things. You'll either see this part of the spring come off the bottom, or, as is the case with this one, it's not very visible, I'm afraid, but you can see the spring has come away from where it sits up at the top, and you can actually move it with your hand. With that pressure gone, you can then crack this, and as you can see I can now spin it with my hand. I'll spin around to here. You can see a bit of a green marking. On the top one there is a matching green marking, so you can actually see whether you're spinning both of them at the same time or just one. So once you've got this free, for me, I'm going right to the bottom. It should spin nice and freely. Now, as you can see, my thread is nice and clean. The reason it's nice and clean is because, one, I've used some WD-40 on it. Now, admittedly, there are much better things in the world than WD-40, but that's all I have in the garage. And two, I've used a small toothbrush just to clean the threads. If it feels gritty, or if there's any resistance, you've probably got some grit or some dirt in there. Don't keep trying to unthread it, just go back the other way, go back up, so that dirty thread is visible, and give it a clean. This is all aluminium, and it is possible to, with the friction that's created, if there is any, to weld the two pieces of aluminium together and actually freeze these. Again, that's something I read online that other people had done, so yeah, this should just be all nice and easy to do. So what I will do now is spin this one down until they meet each other, and then once they meet each other, again I just turn these in opposite direction to one another so that they lock together, and then as I'm undoing this top one, this entire thing will start to fall down. This, in case you're wondering, if you don't have this big section here, this thing here with the braided line coming out of it, I'm fairly sure is my lift, axle lift. So I've got 2 axle lift on this. I'm fairly sure that if you don't have lift on yours, you will still have something that looks very similar, but without the braided line coming into it. This will probably just be a collar, I imagine. So yeah, I'll get this down and I'll update you again once I've locked those 2 threads together and I've removed the spring compressors. Oh, another thing, if you are going to spray something like WD-40, again, make sure you don't get it on this, because I've heard plenty of stories where you can degrade the surface of the CCM simply by using things like wheel cleaners. So if wheel cleaner can destroy the surface of this, I'd hate to think what things like WD-40 and things like that would do. So yeah, if you do spray anything on it, just wipe it off straight away with a clean cloth. Right, I'll update you again soon. So here we are, back where we started again. Trim's reinstalled. Oh, looks like I'm missing a clip there, I'll pop that in. Spring compressors removed, and I've just left this loose. So you can see, hopefully, where we are, right at the bottom of the thread. And then I've locked those 2 nuts together. So this, if you have a look at that groove in there, this just pushes up into that, yeah, like that. There we are. And of course the trim is reinstalled up here as well. So now it's just a matter of popping the wheel back on, and I'll probably go out for a drive, make sure if everything feels right, I've got no noises or anything like that, but also to let the suspension settle, because when you jack the car up and put it back down, it never seems to sit back in its correct place again. So yeah, once I've done that, I'll take a photo of what it looks like and give you a before and after so that you can compare the difference. Here they are now. So there we have it. That's you've now seen the before and after. I just took the car for a quick drive. Sorry for the exposure, I've just turned the brightness up so you can actually see the gaps underneath. Yeah, took it for a quick drive, the car's settled a little bit again. And yeah, I think that's perfect. There's obviously still a gap. I checked my notes actually, there was 70 millimeters gap between the top of the tyre and here. I haven't measured it again, but I think it's about 20-25 now. Obviously, if I get some Novitex, you can have it sitting right on the tyre, but I don't think I will. I think that just looks a heck of a lot better. I'll give you a view from the back now. There's the view from the back. So still quite a gap. But then, you know, as you saw with the before and after shots, it suits the car to have that gap. So the next thing I'll have to do is now get some spacers, because if you have a look at that front wheel, I mean, look at that's the BMW 4 Series, just a normal, sort of bog standard 4 Series BMW. Look how that wheel sits compared to mine. Definitely need some spacers. That'll be a separate video. There we are. All right, I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. Hope you found it helpful. Stay tuned for the next one, which will more than likely be wheel spacers. Thanks for watching.